Good evening, everyone. I think we're ready to get started. Thank you all for coming. I think the League of Women Voters has been doing this for at least 5 elections. And as I was telling people before, there's probably a couple of candidates who remember standing way in back right next to each other and passing the microphone along. Look what we have now. So thank Randy Jones and his crew for building this. Okay, I probably didn't say this, but I'm Barbara Burrell, who's Voter Services Chair for the League of Women Voters. And the League has been doing this for a long time, and we really think a lot of this project that we do. We're doing 4 forums in Brunswick County this year. Before we begin, there's just a few rules. Please make sure your phones are shut off, okay? And please no clapping, cheering, or booing of the candidates, please. Okay. Unfortunately, one of our mayor candidates is not able to be here tonight. Mr. Barbie, he's had a death in the family and obviously had to be with his family. So that's too bad, and I will make sure that he gets all of the questions and chance to answer them, and I will put them online and all for you. And also we will be sharing, a lot of people submitted questions. We asked people, the general public, to submit questions that we've collected, and we've drawn from them, but of course we could only do a small number. So I will be collating all of those questions and sending them to the candidates without anybody's name, so they can just see what's on the minds of all kinds of people in Southport, and if they want to, at some point speak particularly to an issue that somebody brought up, they would have that opportunity. So we wanted to make sure they could do that. Also, we wanted to let you know that, make sure that everyone knows that regardless of whether you're in Ward 1 or Ward 2, you can vote for all of the candidates. All of the candidates for aldermen for 1 and 2. It doesn't matter which district you live in. It does matter that only a person who lives in a district can run, but sometimes that gets confusing to people when you get your ballot and wonder, well, who can I vote for? And also, Randy wanted me to remind you that the vote in Ward 2 has been moved from Brunswick Community College to the elementary school. And so if some people may be mixed up and just so used to going to BCC, whereas we live so close to the school, we can just go around the corner, and that's nice. Also, I wanted to say we have 2 people here who are our timekeepers, and they will keep the candidates on track. Sue Ann Rush and Sue Marsh. So, and everyone will have 2 minutes for each of the questions. So if you're still talking after 2 minutes, as you probably know, it will beep, and Sydney will tell you, please be quiet. She won't say, shut up. Okay, so that brings me to our moderator, Sydney Bouchard, who's from WWAY TV broadcaster. So I really appreciate her coming all the way to Southport to do this for us tonight, to be our moderator. Otherwise, you get stuck with me. Okay, you might also, just very quickly, you might see on your seats our Vote 411 cards. This is a project of the National League of Women Voters that they do every election. So they ask all the candidates to give them their picture, a little bio, a statement of their philosophy, and then there are 4 or 5 general policy questions that they can talk about or actually write about here. And then that will be going live for the November election in a couple of weeks. So I hope our candidates have already done theirs and are ready for that. So you can go on Vote 411 and put in your zip code, and then you can look up the candidates and see what they've had to say, talk about themselves, or whether they decided they didn't even want to be bothered with us. So just so you have the cards there. Also, you can use those to look up your voter registration and other information. So without that, unless I've forgotten something, I'm going to turn it over to Sydney.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today, and I'm flattered to be here to be able to help facilitate a very important discussion about some important issues here in Southport. So I will go ahead and get started with the first question, and that is going to be, we'll start with Mr. Rich Alt to answer this question. What is the most important thing to you in seeking to be mayor?
The most important, I think, that's facing all of us, not just Rich Alt, is the selection of a new city manager. That sets the stage for everything else that we're going to talk about tonight. We have, when Bonnie leaves this summer, we'll have gone through 6 managers in 12 years. That is not sustainable. We have to have a new way of doing business. We have to have a new way of selecting people. And we have to have a new way of treating people. I've gone out to talk to past managers and find out why they left. And we have, as a Board of Aldermen, have to be able to treat them as the state statute says we are to treat them. They are the chief executive or administrative officer for the city. We can't run around behind them and tell the staff what to do or move this truck or do this or do that or anything like that. We can't tell them to put up yield signs on different roads when it's absolutely against the law to do it. We have to figure out how we're going to get a new person in. So if I'm elected, one of the first things I'm going to do is sit down with the current manager. As you know, she came to work for us for 6 months, and then we begged her to stay for 18 months. But that's going to expire soon. And so we have to start working with her. And fortunately, we do have a brand new HR person, HR director, who knows HR stuff. We have to work with those 2 people to put the process together in the next couple of months, so when we go to activate the process, we have an agreed upon way of doing this. This is the most critical thing that we're going to be doing in the next 6 months, 8 months here. Everything rests upon that. We have like 35 projects out there, multi-million-dollar projects that are hanging out there in some state of finance, operational, we have to move them forward. And the problem that we've had is we keep bringing new managers in. It takes them a year to get up to speed, and then they're gone in a year. So that's my number 1 issue.
Thank you, and we will give our timers 1 second to reset that timer before we go to Dr. Jobad Hatem. All right, whenever you're ready.
If you could repeat the question.
Absolutely.
I don't remember it being about the city manager, so I missed that part.
What is most important to you in seeking to be mayor?
What is most important to me in seeking mayor, that's pretty easy. It's to be a public servant. It's to work for you, the citizens. That's it. That's what's most important. And I've been mayor for almost 4 years now, and I have enjoyed doing it and want to continue to do so. Part of my training, my background, my education, public service was part of what I learned when I was in college, University of Notre Dame, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And public service was a part of our education and part of wanting us to go out into the world and make a difference. And that's what I've tried to do here in Southport. So that is, that's what it means to me. The other thing I would like to add is, Sydney, thank you for doing this. I want to thank the League for doing this event. I always enjoy being here. And I want to thank the citizens who are here this evening. One of the things I plan to do as mayor in my next term is do something about these chairs. We have got to get better chairs for everyone. So I want to thank you for being here, and I also want to thank those who are watching at home. This is something very important in the election process, part of our democracy. And again, I look forward to continuing to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you. And so, Dr. Hatem, you will have the opportunity to answer first for this question. The Southport mayor has a 2-year term of office. He or she is not a lawmaker, as the members of the Board of Aldermen are, but does vote to break ties. Thus, what criteria should the residents of Southport use to evaluate the job a mayor is doing?
The criteria that the citizens should use in terms of how the mayor's doing. First of all, look at the meetings. Are the meetings informative? Are they polite? Are they welcoming? Are they hospitable? Look at the accomplishments over the last few years. 38 projects right now. I mean, that just didn't happen overnight. So we have 38 projects right now. Someone told me, gee, y'all have 38 projects, you're never going to get them done. I said, well, let's not curse the darkness, let's praise the light. We have 38 projects and we're working on them. So that's important. And look at some of the things that a mayor has instituted. For example, the 3-minute limit on your public comment, I removed that. We now have 2 Board of Aldermen meetings a month because we have so many issues that we need to have the board vote on and that we need to discuss. If you look and see that we have the transparency, we have a newsletter, we're streaming these meetings. You know, that started under my administration. If you look at the waterfront, you know that we have $5 million in terms of trying to work towards stabilization, and we have a meeting on October 11th. Look at the greatest infrastructure project since 1792, the sewer. When I was running in 2019, Southport was moving towards building its own wastewater treatment plant. And from my education and training and background, I felt like regionalization and merger was the way to go. And now 4 years later, thanks to the relationship I have and working with county, state officials, I've known Representative Miller and Senator Rabin for 25 years. Look what we've accomplished. So those are the reasons.
Thank you. And we will again give our timer 1 second to reset the timer. Would you like me to repeat the question, Mr. Alt? Absolutely. The Southport mayor has a 2-year term of office. He or she is not a lawmaker, as the members of the Board of Aldermen are, but does vote to break ties. Thus, what criteria should the residents of Southport use to evaluate the job a mayor is doing?
Well, I think one of the first tasks is teamwork, and part of teamwork is actually giving credit to the people who actually do the work. There's a lot of good ideas that come in. There isn't a board member that hasn't had a good idea. So we all have good ideas. The way we do that, how you build teamwork, is you give credit to the people who had the ideas. If you go down to Key West and you go to the Truman Annex, there's a great sign besides the buck stops here. It says, amazing what you can get done if you don't mind who gets the credit. So I think the teamwork should be giving the credit to the staff. The teamwork for the sewer system, we all participated in that. We all voted time and time again to do that. We all voted for the board to come in and do something on the sewer system. But the last 4 months were very interesting. The last 4 months was where the rubber met the road. And that was done by staff. That was done by our city manager and the staff. That number of $35 million just didn't pop out of the air. That was our staff who gave that to the elected officials. And Steve Stone, who's the county manager, was critical in this whole thing, pushing forward with this. They were doing that all to the side, working with the state legislature, specifically Senator Rayburn and Charlie Miller, our representative, to get the money allotted. So Charlie got $15 million, and Senator Rayburn got the $20 million. And that should be the delta between they're going to take all the money that we have in our fund. That's a good thing. Don't worry about that. They're going to take all that money. They're going to take the pipes. They're going to assume our debt of almost $30 million. Now, it's a benefit to them to assume the debt because they need the $30 million because they just got permission today to move forward with building the addition to the plant. But we collectively, the board, got the $30 million under Gordon Hargrove with a really good.
Mr. Alt, that is your time.
I'm sorry.
And moving on to our next question, Mr. Alt, you will have the opportunity to answer first. A major job of the mayor is to set the agenda for the Board of Aldermen meetings. How would you go about this task? What criteria do you or would you use to determine board issues? Mr. Alt.
Well, it's not a one-person show setting the agenda. It's a working relationship between the mayor and the city manager that sets the agenda. The city manager helps the mayor with the big projects that are coming in. The manager helps the city manager to keep on track of things. So you'll notice that we get this big spreadsheet every month, and that tells us where we are on the projects. But I think one of the things we really need to do is towards the end of the meeting is to take what we think are the top priority projects and verbalize them, because I'm looking at them. Yes, you can see them online if you can go through the 400 and some odd pages if you want to. But I think we need to keep things moving along and people knowing where they are each month. We're not going to go through all 35 or 38 projects that are out there. We're going to pick the top ones, and you do that in collaboration with the aldermen. Remember, it's the aldermen meeting, so the aldermen should have a lot of say in how this all works together, and that's how I think we should be organizing the meeting. It was an alderman. It was John Allen that came up with the 2-meeting issue. We all supported that. It was first to be a prep meeting, and then it turned in, our meetings were getting to be 4.5 hours long. And we were falling asleep, no less you in the audience, and the people watching it on live stream. So Robert Carroll was also instrumental, at least instrumental in my mind, talking to me about we should have 2 voting meetings and get the things done. So that's how the program falls together. Take the best ideas, move forward with them, and now we're going to go, this is the first month we're going to have 2 meetings. We'll see how that works. Hopefully it'll be streamlined.
Thank you, Mr. Alt. Dr. Hayden, would you like me to repeat the question? Okay. I think we are waiting on our timer. You are ready to answer whenever.
Thank you. The agenda is produced in part by the aldermen. They can put any item they would like to have on the agenda. The majority of it is generated by the city manager and city staff. They're every day moving things forward. And then I meet with the city manager and we review the agenda, and we review it weekly prior to the meeting, sometimes daily. And I spend a good bit of time with the city clerk. They're the ones that actually put it together. They're actually the ones that type it. And so between the Board of Aldermen putting agenda items on, the city manager, city staff, and then working with the city clerk, that's how how it's generated. And I try to make sure that what is put on the agenda is an action item. I try not to put things on there that we just sit and talk about per se. I mean, I want to make sure that the information is, that the board has the information that they need to make a decision. We also, on our agendas, we have consultants come in to give us presentations. As you know, we have public hearings on the agenda that are mandated because we're a text amendment or a Unified Development Ordinance change and that type thing. And the other thing that I'm proud of is that the proclamations that we put on there. I probably write the majority of those proclamations, and I'm proud to do that. And this month, for example, we have Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we have Fire Prevention Week, and we also have Emergency Nurses Week. So that's part of the meeting, that's part of the agenda. So it's multiple ways that the agenda is put together.
Thank you, Dr. Hayden, and you will answer first for the next question. What are your thoughts about the role and activities of the Southport mayor in regional governing agencies and agendas? The mayor has an important role in
in working with, for example, the North Carolina League of Municipalities. That's the largest lobbying group that municipalities have. Also with the Cape Fear Council of Government, works with the local mayors, and also has a obligation and an important responsibility in working with the county commissioners and the staff from the county. And during COVID, we did that via Zoom. It was, I would sit in the city manager's office, Gordon Hargrove, and we would have these meetings, and mainly they were about the sewer. And that's how long this whole process has been going on. And it does take a lot of hours of staff to bring these projects to fruition. But anyway, so the mayor goes to these different meetings. I've been to Raleigh, to the League of Municipalities meeting where legislators and mayors and elected officials meet, and there's a program, and we learn from each other. Also go to Raleigh to just visit with the state legislators, our Senator Raven, and Representative Charlie Miller. So these are things that are important, but they're not the most important thing that the mayor does. The most important thing that the mayor does is right here in Southport. The most important meeting that I attend is the meeting with y'all at our alderman meeting, and then meeting with you, whether at City Hall or in your homes or in our community. Those are the most important meetings there are, and what's most important to me.
Thank you, Dr. Hayden. Mr. Alt, would you like me to repeat the question? Okay. What are your thoughts about the role and activities of the Southport mayor in regional governing agencies and agendas?
I think this is a critical aspect that we can improve on. I believe, because when you go out in the hall here, my resume is sitting there, and I had the great fortune to be able to go to a lot of schools, because where I worked, they sent us to a lot of schools. And I believe that we need to start sending our staff on more schools as well. But with that said, looking beyond our borders for best practices. A little simple thing like the House Street project, the contract for both the engineer and for the people digging up this House Street project was basically a disaster. And all you had to do was go over to Bolivia, and they gave me Citizen Alt with the way to do that. And I brought that back, and I asked for an after action, not to look for fault. I wasn't looking for fault. I was looking to figure out how we do these things better. And that is what we need to look to do. And we've never done the after action. You're going to hear on Thursday, I'm going to be asking for a forensic review of the money for the House Street project, not because I think anything was stolen. I want to use that and a couple other projects to figure out how we get better policies and procedures that you've all heard us say we have very few of. I went to, this past month, to the Rural Planning Organization, which is the organization we belong to for traffic management issues. And when I walked in the door, this is what they told me. After they stopped laughing, they said, you know, you're the first elected official in 4 years to come in here. Now, that shouldn't be. When I came back and I asked, how do we know what the gateway to this city looks like? Robert Rourke, 211-87. We didn't have that. I had to call the regional director of NCDOT, Transportation Department, and ask him to have that sent to us and sent to the manager. That's now on your website, and I've run out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Alt, and you will answer this question first. What do you envision the role the mayor should be in the hiring of city managers and staff and the overseeing of their jobs?
Well, the state statute kind of takes part of that away from me, or from the mayor. The mayor and the board can give suggestions to the manager once they're on board as far as how to hire staff, but we are not there to hire, fire staff. The only two staff members, I think, and I'll defer, I think we fire or hire is the clerk and the manager. I could be wrong on that, and if I am technically wrong, it's a minor point. However, the hiring of the manager, I kind of went into already, it's critical, and we have not done a good job on that. I'm talking about actually going to the jurisdiction that we've got it down to the last 1 or 2 people and talking to them. Is this person running from something, or are they running to us? That is a critical question that we have to answer in this whole thing. We're going to have a heck of a time, because I've already been told that the 2 city manager, county manager organizations, the North Carolina one and the international one, are already talking about Southport. When you go through 6 managers in 12 years, we're going to have to probably raise the salary dramatically to get the best. And just because you raise it doesn't mean the people who are applying are the best. But just to get them to hook into it, you're going to have to do some really hard work. And it's going to be a totally different process, or we're back again to having somebody come in here and 2 years later they leave, and we're on the continuing cycle. So I have some ideas on that, but my ideas have to be meshed with the person who's really the subject matter expert on that, and that's our new HR person. And we have a very experienced manager here now, who I really do care about, and she can help us.
Thank you, Mr. Alt, and we will let the timer reset before Dr. Hayden answers. Would you like me to repeat the question, Dr. Hayden? Okay. What do you envision the role the mayor should be in the hiring of city managers and staff and the overseeing of their jobs?
The mayor doesn't really hire or fire anyone. He doesn't really oversee anyone per se. It's a council manager form of government. The board does hire a city attorney, the city clerk, and the city manager. In terms of hiring a city manager, whether it's the salary or whatever it is that we entice them with, what we want is someone who wants to come and live here and love Southport, period. That's the #1 criteria, that wants to be a part of our community. And if we have to hire another interim, or if we have to extend, if she's willing to, the present city manager, whatever, we'll find the right person at some point, whether he or she. But that is what I feel is critical in that regard. We find someone who wants to live here, to be a part of our community, and love Southport, just like I love Southport, just like you love Southport. And I think that's how we go about that. Again, the mayor doesn't really supervise anyone per se. I don't tell the director of public services what to do or how to do it, or I do work closely with the city clerk, the city manager. We talk or text or email, every day. And each city manager has a different management style. Spend time with the public information officer, but the day-to-day operations the mayor does not do.
Thank you, Dr. Hayden, and you will answer first for this question. Please describe what transparency, openness, and inclusiveness would mean to you in your job as mayor of Southport.
The transparency aspect, I think you've all seen. Now that we're streaming our meetings, we have a newsletter, and I write part of that newsletter, every month, and enjoy doing that. And we have, I've asked, and staff has done this, and the board has agreed to all of this, is that we make sure that whatever the board sees in their packet, you can see on your computer or your device, at home or wherever you are. So the information that they have, you can see. We stream the meetings. We have a newsletter. We have Southport Connected. So if you are a member of that, the newsletter you should have received October 1st electronically. And so these are the ways that we are transparent, how we get information to our citizens, but like I've said before, the only way we could be more transparent is if you're with me at my home watching me type, because everything that I do, you see, and I want it to be that way, and the same with the board. So it's very important, and we want to hear the voice of the people, inclusiveness. And like I said previously, the 3-minute limit on public comment no longer exists, and instituted that the very first meeting. And so I'm proud of that. And your voice is so important. And you know that from our meetings. So that to me is how we have inclusiveness and transparency.
Thank you. We will let our timer reset. Mr. Alt, would you like me to repeat the question? Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Are you ready, ma'am? Okay. One of the reasons why I ran for alderman 2 years ago was this issue of transparency. So to put in perspective, I went to virtually every meeting from 2019 on. I think I missed 2. For kid issues. And so I saw that we did not have transparency here. You couldn't tell when meetings were going to, commissions and meetings were going to take place. There was no agendas, there was no summaries, there was no letting you know when positions were opening up. It simply just went on and on and on. And it took over 2 years, the first year, the year before I got elected and the year after I got elected, working with the aldermen to change that. And now it's getting much better. Whether it's the planning board or the board of adjustment or whatever it is, you can see all that stuff before, you know, when the meetings are coming up. It's not just on a website that you have to proactively go looking at every day. That's not transparency. Well, I guess it is partly. It is the social media part of the whole thing that they keep pushing it out and pushing it out. And that has improved dramatically in the last couple of years based on board action. The board collectively has worked on doing that. I think we can do better with our website. It has gotten better. It is not where it needs to be. If you want to search, it is very difficult to do that. We have a program to go in that direction. We have staff that are working on making that better, but it needs to be better so that you can do the search better. And we can work collectively that. We have a tremendous, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Alt. And so you will answer first on this final question. Please use your final 2 minutes to tell us something about life on the campaign trail. What stands out most in your mind that you have learned about what being mayor means to Southport residents? Also, is there one thought that you especially wish to leave with Southport voters about your campaign?
One of the things they really they enjoy talking about on the campaign trail is, who are you? Where did you come from? What do you have in common with me? And I found out, I didn't find out, it finally dawned on me that I was not selling my story very well. I came from an East Coast port town. The distance from the dock to the main water was about 2.2 miles. Just about the same size as that. We had fishing, the best fishing of the migrating fish that come past here in the spring and go by us, going the other way in the fall, hit that area between June and end of August. And we built ships in that town in days gone by. The last big boat that I think they built there was a ferrous cement boat. In my time, certainly. I worked on the water every summer, working with the Bay Constable. I'm very familiar with the water. I'm very familiar with the environment of the water. And my town was very, very similar to this town. When I had to get work, I had to leave there. And I said to my wife, who's sitting over here 41 years, that once we retire, I need to go back to the water. And so that's what I went and did after that. I have 40 years of professional, bureaucratic, administrative skill sets in the state, local, and federal levels. I bring that to you. And I have learned I need your help to understand what you want, because you are 3-0. The citizens of this Southport have won 3 battles in a row with indigo, conditional zoning, and legislative programs, and it was because of you. We helped, we cheerleaded, you did it.
Thank you, Mr. Alt. And Dr. Hayden, this is your chance to answer. Would you like me to repeat the question? Okay. Please use your final 2 minutes to tell us something about life on the campaign trail. What stands out most in your mind that you have learned about what being mayor means to Southport residents? Also, is there one thought that you especially wish to leave with Southport voters about your campaign?
Well, thank you, Sydney. Thank you for this. There's an hour already gone by, I tell you. Seems like just a couple of minutes. And thank you all for being here. The campaign trail is wonderful. My favorite campaign, Tish and I, and campaign manager, we went door to door, Bill Duke, and it's just wonderful to be invited into someone's home, talk about the issues, meet them. Or you go to someone's home and say, well, you were my doctor, remember me? And of course you remember them, they tell you what the situation was. And so just meeting the people of Southport has, for Tish and for me, has just been wonderful. In terms of, being mayor, I love being mayor. I love being a public servant for the people. And it's sort of like Mayberry, and I mean that in a good way. Where can your doctor also be the mayor? And that's in Southport, and that's part of the beauty of it. And if I could leave you with a thought, I would like to leave you with several. On a tombstone in the old Smithfield burial ground, it says, "Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing." And being a public servant and being mayor is one of the greatest joys that in my life. Secondly, I want you to remember that we bring the history of Southport with us. Tom and Pete Hickman, the old man and the boy, Robert Ruark. Tom Hickman was Tish's great-grandfather, so we want to bring that history and preserve it with us. And third, remember that I've been your mayor for 4 years, and I've been working and living in Southport for almost 40. So thank you for being here.
Thank you both for your time and for your thoughtful answers. We will reset and allow the Board of Aldermen candidates to come up.
That's on.
Ready? All right, everybody, I do believe we are ready to get started with our Board of Aldermen candidates. If everybody could please have their seats. We're getting ready to get started with our Board of Aldermen candidates, everybody. Thank you. All right, so we will go ahead and get started. John Allen, you are going to start us off. Briefly introduce yourself and tell us why serving on the Board of Aldermen is important to you.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming out tonight, everybody. My name is John Allen. I'm on the Board of Aldermen, just finishing up my first term, was elected in 2019. I am retired and from about a 30-year career in local government, economic development, and city planning. I worked for several municipalities throughout the state, and also worked as a city planner here in Southport. After retired, I joined the Southport Planning Board and then was elected to the city council. Serving as an alderman is, whoop, am I there? Okay. Is important to me just because it, you know, you guide literally the life of the city, and the decisions that we make are very important, and they impact the lives of everybody that lives here. And it's very important for me that those decisions are made on the basis of facts and data, and that that those decisions provide a positive benefit to the majority of Southport citizens. And we should not be making decisions for a small group of people. We need to look at what is the best decision for the entire city. Just on a real quick personal note, this is not a reason to vote for me, but my public service is something that is been very prevalent in my family. Actually, my great-grandfather was an alderman and mayor of Greensboro way back when, and my grandfather was a Guilford County commissioner, and my father was very active in volunteer activities in Greensboro where I grew up. So it's kind of always been something in the back of my mind that I've thought about doing, and I've really enjoyed it very much, and I hope to continue it for 4 more years. Thank you.
Miss Bonnie Bray, we will move on to you, and we will let our timer reset as soon as she is ready. Miss Bray.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Bray. I'm running for alderman in one of 2 open seats in Ward 2. Thank you all very much for coming. This is just quite a thing to not be in the audience and see this from this side of the table. I am running for alderman at this time because the growth that is happening all around us is a very serious matter. I have a 25-year professional career as a finance director for local governments in North Carolina and Maryland, and I want to dedicate that knowledge to helping Southport navigate the challenges that it's facing because of this growth. Much of the growth is happening outside our borders. There is some, of course, in Southport, but most of it is happening outside our borders. But of course, Southport is Brunswick County's downtown, and we have lots of challenges facing us: parking, traffic, infrastructure burden, demands for service, workforce housing, you name it. We've got a lot coming at us down the pike, literally and figuratively, over the next many years. And we can, as a city, manage that growth, or the challenges, the problems that growth brings to us. And I want to contribute to that effort. I'm a government nerd, have been around the block a couple of times in various local governments throughout the state. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are lots of ways we can meet these challenges. I would also like to contribute my experience as a strong volunteer in Southport's community. I am a citizen. I've been on the beautification committee. I've been with Up Your Arts. Now I'm on the Historic Preservation Commission, and those are all voices I want to represent, and obviously my neighbors represent on the dais.
Thank you, Ms. Bray, and we will move on to Lo Davis as soon as our timer is ready, and I believe she's ready.
Thank you. It's hard to summarize a life in 2 minutes, but I'll try. I actually have 3 jobs. In addition to alderman, I'm an Episcopal priest, have been for a long, long time. I'll be taking confessions later if you need to. And I have had a career as a journalist, a reporter and an editor for over 50 years. I've won over 25 National Journalism Awards for my work with First Amendment, transparency, and investigative projects into local government. I ran 4 years ago because my head just about exploded over the lack of transparency that we were seeing involving the plan to get away, to sever our ties to the county and build our own sewer plant. And part of that process was selling 2.5 acres of precious waterfront land to the marina for a giveaway price that was supposed to be a nature park. Well, as it happens, I had been going to almost every alderman meeting since 2013, which is when I came here. I should say came back to here. I've been coming here since I was 6 years old. I had family here. The reason I came in 2013 was I was hired to be an interim priest at St. Philip's. Second day I was here, I called a real estate agent and said, I'm moving. So here I am. I want to be your alderman for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will go on to Miss Rebecca Kelly.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. It's wonderful to see the room packed. We would love to see this for all of our alderman meetings as well. Just plug there. So my name is Rebecca Azado Kelly. I grew up here in Southport, and if we're talking about our families, My stepfather has been here since the 70s as one of your local doctors. So I moved to Southport when my mom married my dad in between 3rd and 4th grade. Southport was a fresh start for me. I went to Southport Elementary School, and I had the benefit of a family who was more than just relatives. It was my entire town. There were times when I thought I got away with something as a teenager, and someone went and saw my dad in the office a couple of months later, and I got in trouble then. That's the kind of community where I grew up, and I'm now raising my 8 and 10-year-old children in that community. I want to make sure that we are saving what is here and what makes Southport unique and what we want in our town. Because when something's going on, looking at the next 3 years or 4 years isn't enough. We need to look at the next 30 years, the next 50 years. We need to know where our goals are and what we're moving towards. I have had the life of being in the private sector for large resort companies across the country. I have traveled extensively through that work, and I am glad to bring all of that experience from the private sector back to Southport, because there are things that we look at in the private sector, how we spend our money. And that's not my money, that's all of our money. It doesn't just come from magical places. We need to look at how we're spending and be fiscally responsible as Southport moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tom Lombardi.
Yes, my name's Tom Lombardi. Welcome to everybody, and thank you for coming. My wife Murray and I have lived here since 2012 in the River Mist community, and we're loving every day. Shortly after I moved here, I got involved in the beautification committee, and then shortly after the Board of Adjustments. And I'm a participant in the community garden, which is a great place to be. My background is construction, infrastructure, building, concrete work, all that. And that's why I really wanted to become an alderman, because I sat through 6, 7, 8 years of meetings sitting where you are and watching them kick that can down the road when it came to maintenance and upgrading of infrastructure, which is my specialty. I feel that this board has gone a long way, and we've started a lot of good things. And I want to be here for the next 4 years to see that all through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will end this question with Mr. Mark Spencer.
Don't hear Mr. in front of that very often. My name is Mark Spencer. I have grown up in Southport. I was born in 1970. My mother and father moved from what you call the Gatehouse, which is on House Street. It was my great-grandmother's house. And they built a new empire over there for me on Cape Fear Drive. So I grew up on Cape Fear Drive, very family-oriented community in the 70s. I've got a lot of perspective on what Southport was. I've seen it change over the years. As a young person, the thing that sticks out of me most is my father's stories telling me how lucky I was to be here. And I didn't understand. I was ready to get away from here. But he told me about how difficult it was to get a job. And that if it wasn't for getting a job at Sunny Point, he would have never been able to raise me here. I would have never gone to school. I would have never gone to college. I never had the luxuries of growing up in Southport. That problem is consistent. It's getting worse and worse. Survival of Southport, of families and multi-generational growth is in jeopardy. I don't want to be Chicken Little, but I don't want to avoid telling you what I know and what I have seen. I'm here to be a positive influence, not to beat down. I have no agenda other than to try to set it up for the next generation and for the city to work, to prosper. We're 3,824 people that will vote. Probably 35% will turn out. 1,200 or 1,300 people will decide the future of Southport every 2 years. The scary thing is, 1,500 people came in the last 5 years. We have a major turnover problem.
Thank you very much. Moving on, Southport is facing a number of serious and complex issues, more than we can cover in this forum. The next few questions will take you through some of these issues and ask for your thoughts on them as a member of the Board of Aldermen and what actions you might suggest the board take to deal with these issues. We will start with Ms. Bonnie Bray for the following question. Currently, one of the issues before the Board of Aldermen concerns zoning of properties centering primarily on the idea of conditional zoning. Please describe or define what conditional zoning means to you and what your ideas are about the effect of conditional zoning on housing in Southport.
Since starting this campaign, I've learned more than I ever thought I would ever need to know about conditional zoning. It's a big, big topic, and it's not actually going to be before the Board of Aldermen until sometime next year because it's been sent back to the Planning Department. So it's not really a current issue, but it's definitely time to be talking about it now. There are a number of people who are very concerned about the effects of conditional zoning at its worst. I appreciate that and have listened to some of that conversation from individuals and from groups. I've also done a lot of reading about conditional zoning. It is probably the most popular zoning choice of cities above 25,000 in North Carolina, but it also exists in much smaller areas and some areas surrounding Southport. It's a big conversation that needs to take place. There are many things that conditional zoning can do. One of the things that I've learned is it does give a greater deal of flexibility to the leaders of towns and cities, the people of towns and cities, if they're involved in the public conversation. It gives people lots more flexibility in deciding what a developer can and can't do. It's more transparent than much of what we currently have available to us. So I think it's, at this point in my book, the pros and the cons are about equal. I expect to learn more and also to talk to people who are in cities who are currently utilizing conditional zoning and see if there's a match for Southport.
Thank you. We will let our timer reset and then we will allow Ms. Davis to answer the question as well. And I'm happy to repeat it if you would like me to. Whenever you're ready.
I'm against conditional zoning. I know a lot about it, I've studied it, but most of all, I have listened to what people have had to say, people who live here who will be affected by it. There are some positives, but I actually, in the last meeting, made a motion to get it off our agenda until after we have done a comprehensive land use plan, which will have a lot of public input. And unlike conditional zoning, where the developer has to have public hearings, the developer does not have to incorporate any of the public input into the plan. It is less transparent. Also, with the comprehensive land use plan, the public will get to have not only input, but that input has to go into the comprehensive land use plan. That's the point at which we can see if what the citizens want and how this has shaped up, would conditional zoning be effective? If we want to know the worst of what could happen with conditional zoning, look at what happened to Sunset Beach. They adopted conditional zoning early this year. Last month, through conditional zoning, on 120 acres, they got 520 condos, 150-room hotel, restaurants, shops, all kinds of other stuff, including an entertainment center, whatever that is, on 120 acres. Just think how that would be in Southport. The city leaders in Sunset Beach were just overwhelmed by
That's your
this
time, Ms.
developer.
Davis. And Ms. Kelly, we will allow our timer to reset, and whenever she's ready. Go ahead, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you. So conditional zoning has been in front of the Planning Board and the Board of Aldermen of Southport now. It was recently kicked back to the Planning Board, as the two gentlewomen in front of me mentioned. I brought in a subject matter expert because I didn't know enough about conditional zoning to make a decision about it. So I went to a former planner for several counties who now works in the private sector. And I asked about conditional zoning and the experience that he had with conditional zoning. Because one of the things that I feel very strongly about is when we don't know the answers ourselves, we need to reach out and find the people who have experience in whatever it is that we're working on at that point in time. And not be afraid to say, you know what, I don't know about this, but I'm going to find the person who does. After that experience, and after listening to the hundreds of comments during public comment during our Board of Aldermen meetings and our Planning Board meetings, it has become clear to me that the conditional zoning would be a pre- and post-conditional zoning in Southport. We would see the difference in our building as we take away the ability for our zoning rules that are currently in place and give the developers the option to do what they would like. There are some benefits to it, absolutely. But in our situation in Southport, it seems that it isn't a good fit. It's a much better fit for larger municipalities that are looking to infill other areas that are trying to put in a small market in an area that is walkable and needs a small market, not what we have here in Southport right now. The last note on conditional zoning I do want to say is we have the opportunity right now to make sure that stays out of our town, and we need to make sure we're taking it.
Thank you. Mr. Lombardi. Absolutely. Currently, one of the issues before the Board of Aldermen concerns zoning of properties centering primarily on the idea of conditional zoning. Please describe or define what conditional zoning means to you and what your ideas are about the effect of conditional zoning on housing in Southport.
Okay, well, when conditional zoning was first presented, I had some doubts, and you know, I didn't know one way or the other, but I started to investigate, and I read, and I talked to staff who is very qualified, and I started to, you know, try to understand what conditional zoning was. I'm looking more on the positive side than the negative. I think that it gives us a little more say in what's going to happen in Southport. I think the citizens have more to say about conditional zoning when it's applied for. And right now it's back at the Planning Board, and I'm going to wait for their decisions before I make my final decision. But I am leaning towards thinking that it would be better for Southport than not. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Mark Spencer.
So I was a member of the Board of Aldermen, and I was a liaison for the Planning Board, and I was a part of the UDO. And conditional zoning did come up as we were developing this past UDO. And it was an alternative that they wanted to consider, but it was illegal, or it was not available. It was not possible for this project or that project. So we go into very detailed meetings where we pick apart the UDO. We try to UDO our problems away. We try to this rule and that rule, worried about a waterfront dock or what the marina is going to do or whatever. So we really had a hard time with creating that UDO and really covering our bases. the conditional zoning is appealing to me because we only have a little bit of property and opportunity left in Southport. We have 4,000 residents in a county that's 160,000 people. These people come and wear out our resources daily. And to be honest with you, the Southport that we have is not for the residents, it's for the tourist. I don't buy my major supplies in Southport because they're not provided. They're not for the residents. So I want opportunities with these developers to say, I need these things. We need high quality assisted living or things that we'll need in the future. Our city is close to functional obsolescence, and that sounds bad, but it's the truth. When you got $1 million properties trying to make a profit, your costs are going to go out of sight. We've got to get control of it.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Okay. Yeah, so conditional zoning is the most commonly used rezoning in North Carolina. It's been around for years. It's worked very successfully. It does, in fact, allow for greater public input and greater transparency. To me, the bottom line on it is it allows for better, higher quality development that is more suited specifically for Southport. It gives us the ability to negotiate with the developer and provide not only from the board, but more specifically and more especially from the citizens, provide that input to the developer and of course to us on the board as well, so that we are able to work to create higher quality development. It doesn't give developers a free pass to do anything they want to do. The control, the city holds all the cards, because unless a majority of this board votes to approve a project, it's not going to get approved. We have conditional zoning currently in the UDO now for commercial properties, so it's not even a new concept. It's something that we've been doing. I think it would be good for Southport. I think it would allow us to develop property in a more ecologically sound manner. We might be able to, you have the ability to go in and do things like have the developer do some affordable housing within that development. If it's a large project, you can require that they have additional access and egress points. You require, maybe they only have 2.2 roads coming in and out. We can make them have a third or a fourth.
That is your time, Mr. Allen.
I just don't think it's something to be scared of. Thank you.
All right, and we will start with Ms. Lowe Davis for the following question. An important issue that has recently arisen concerns Franklin Square Park's restoration and maintenance. As captured in the Stateport pilot, the issue can be characterized as what kind of park should Franklin Square Park actually be? Please give us your thoughts on this issue and the role you believe the Board of Aldermen should be playing in resolving this issue.
Thank you. I'd like to finish my remark about conditional zoning. One thing, I'd like to put an exclamation point on that. That development in Sunset Beach, guess what the name of it is? Riptide. I think that says it all. Now, about Franklin Square Park, I am one of the core members of Friends of Franklin. I am one of the gray-haired old ladies who is working very hard to try to get the park back to what it used to be, what it was designed to be by a very expert landscaper, a landscape architect back way many years ago. The work on it was done by the WPA that far back. And for many, many years, this was a park where it was full of beautiful big azaleas and many other plants. Of course, the trees, the trees that were there then. Many of them are still there. Winding paths. It was a park where people could go and sit and read and think and just enjoy nature. What it has become, unfortunately, because of intensive overuse by markets, festivals, we've had 160 vendors in there at one time with all of their wares, sticking the tent posts down into the roots. If you look at pictures of it now or just go there, you see an awful lot of bare ground and very, very few bushes and beautiful flowers are left. We want to get that back. There are other places.
That is your time.
Thank you.
Ms. Kelly, would you like me to repeat the question? Okay.
I am a member of the Friends of Franklin Facebook group, just so I've got full disclosure here. I met with some of the other members just this past week to really learn some more of the history of Franklin Square Park. Having grown up here, it was a park where I played as a child. It's a park where my now 8 and 10-year-old children played when they were young children as well. And we've seen the deterioration of the park over even the last 10 years since my children were playing in the park. Certainly since I was playing in the park. The opportunities that we have now with Taylor Field and with the Garrison Lawn and some other places that we have here in town, we might be able to revisit where some of our markets are. I love our markets. I don't want to get rid of our markets. But perhaps we can give Franklin Square Park some breathing room and let it come back. Perhaps it's time to start looking at replanting some of the plants that I believe Mr. Olmsted was the one who originally did the design work for Franklin Square Park. And let's bring our park back to what it once was. Now, I am also a member of our 4th of July committee, so I do want to put a plug in for that. I think a one-time-a-year big celebration in the park is a very different animal than a weekly market in the park. There are other issues that come up with having events in the park with parking. Taylor Field might be able to solve some of that as well. And then certainly, I don't know about you guys, but I really loved when the markets were on the Garrison Lawn. I thought it was a beautiful thing and a wonderful background for not only us as citizens of Southport, but also when other people are coming in. This is what we're here for, guys. Like, let's showcase what we have and let our park breathe a little bit in the meantime.
Thank you. Mr. Lombardi?
Yeah, I'm all for saving Franklin Park and the trees and the plants. Don't get me wrong, but when I first heard this, I heard they wanted to have nothing there at all, that it was going to be only to walk through on paths, and that was it. And I don't know, it kind of struck me. But we right now are waiting for a Bartlett Tree Service, which is a very well-known tree service. They're doing an inventory and see what kind of shape the trees are in. And I think I have to wait for that result to make any decision. But to be completely out of the park, I don't know. I think we could still use the park and just do it a little more carefully. Because you can go to any of our parks and say, hey, you know, you're walking on tree roots and maybe it's not good. So we have parks. We should be able to use them, but we have to use them in a responsible way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. Give our timer 1 second to reset. Okay. Mr. Spencer.
So I actually hunted Easter eggs in Franklin Square Park. And my children hunted Easter eggs in Franklin Square Park. So there are things we're going to do in Franklin Square Park, hopefully. My way, they have a saying, my way is the highway. Not here. I don't want that on me. I don't want my way to be overburdened on what everyone wants. But I think we've got a lot of opportunity if we connect our parks. We let our visitors come and we connect our parks. And if they go to every park in our city, they will know what Southport has. They'll walk along the waterfront. They'll walk along cemeteries. They'll walk along Taylor Field, maybe in places that are safe to walk, designated to walk, herding the cattle. I use sarcasm to try to be nice. So we've got a lot of opportunity with the park. We don't have to wear Franklin Square down. We've got a lot of opportunity now. I think that having the markets either in Taylor Field, where we have prepared walking paths, would help. When they had the food rodeo truck downtown and they shut down Bay Street, it was a major success, almost like the 4th of July. That's our standard for everything, the 4th of July. So I think we need to give Franklin Square a rest, but maybe an Easter egg hunt or a 4th of July festival, but let's protect our assets.
Mr. Allen, give our timer 1 second to reset. Whenever you're ready.
You're ready? I'm good. Yeah, I mean, Franklin Square Park is obviously a crown jewel of the city. We all love it. It's beautiful. We all use it. You know, we've got, I kind of agree with Mr. Lombardi. I'm sure that there is some sort of compromise that we can come to still be able to preserve the beauty of the park and still use it in an appropriate manner. We do have a professional arborist that's coming to do a very thorough study of the health of the plants in the park, and the Board of Aldermen will receive that report and we'll act on it. The park is obviously very important to me. It's very important to everybody, and I think I speak for all the aldermen when I say that we want it to be healthy and beautiful and vibrant. And so we're just going to have to work with the community and with the experts and with downtown Southport and 4th of July committee and everybody else to come up with a plan that will enable us to use it appropriately and still preserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Give our Ms. Bray, give our timer 1 second. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Bray.
Great, thank you. This is the Franklin Square Park situation, which is fairly new. I mean, I know that it's not new in the eyes of in the hearts of the people who are on the committee now, but the public exposure is new. To me, it's a perfect example of the things about Southport that I love. First, Southport itself and Southport's customs. People care deeply and are intimately attached to the things that are important, that the infrastructure, the natural infrastructure of Southport. I appreciate that now because I'm on the Historic Preservation Commission with a number of people who were born and raised here or spent most of their lives here, and I'm seeing it firsthand in many ways. The other thing I love about this particular situation as an example of Southport's goodness is the civic life it has engendered. We have a group of people who saw a problem, they raised it as an issue, they did all their homework, they went to the various committees, the planning board, they went to the Historic Preservation Commission, they talked to city leaders, they've talked to individuals, they wrote letters to the editor, and they are not just, I also met with them two representatives last week, and they are not just saying no, no, no. They see themselves as being part of the solution to a very real problem. There is a process. The city the city is engaged by hiring Bartlett Tree Service. We will figure this out together. And it's just amazing how it works. If you let people have an open exchange of ideas, they start solving problems together instead of us versus them. I'm so proud of them.
Thank you, Ms. Bray. And we will start with Ms. Kelly for the following question. The next issue to consider involves affordable and low-income housing in Southport. Do you view Southport as a welcoming place for our city workers? Have any of you surveyed the city regarding this issue? And what proposals, if any, do you have regarding affordable housing issues?
So I mentioned that I grew up here. It also means that I moved out of my parents' home and I got a roommate. We shared expenses as we rented in town. Someone purchased the home and we paid them to live in their home as a roommate. Southport has some of the most expensive property in southeastern North Carolina. I think we have an opportunity to work with the county to find areas that are still drivable to Southport, where there's possibly an opportunity for a public-private partnership. We've had the Habitat for Humanity and some other organizations come into the alderman meetings, and they've shared that there are hurdles that cost is a huge one for coming into Southport. Those hurdles don't exist when they go out into the county, and certainly there are areas, and I'm sure most of you, as I did, commuted to work. I lived 45 minutes from where I went to work, and I was able to make that commute and made the decision to make that commute. There are areas in our county that are certainly much closer than 45 minutes where we can work with our county officials and work with developers to encourage housing that's affordable. In Southport, I just can't see that as something that fiscally makes sense for us. I love our city employees. I have worked in the hospitality industry for most of my career, and I understand that finding a place can be difficult, but you can find them, and you don't have to live alone in order to afford it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. We will move on to Mr. Lombardi. Give our timer 1 second to reset. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, affordable housing, that's a big problem. I agree with Rebecca here. It's going to be hard to do this in Southport. However, I think it's a county-wide, it's a countrywide problem. And I think we would have to work with the county in order to find areas to have affordable housing. It's hard for me to understand because I don't see it happening here in Southport. I think we have to work with the county and other agencies in order for it to work. And I think that's going to take some doing. And we'll have to look into that more and spend some time doing it. That's really all I have to say about affordable housing. It's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. Mr. Spencer.
My background for 25 years, the thing that I love to do other than being involved in political process, I sold government homes. These were FHA foreclosures. Most of the people that bought homes from me, they called me and I qualified them based on their income and credit. And they qualified for homes, first-time homes. Here, there's no such thing as qualifying for a home. It's how much money have you got and where is it coming from. So qualifying down here is really not a reality. Affordable housing is affordable if the sustainable wage is enough to pay for the house. The only way we fix affordable housing is a sustainable wage. There are two types of wages. There are W-2 wages. A mortgager, and I'm sorry to do this, but a mortgager looks at before tax income for a W-2 buyer and an after-tax income for a 1099 buyer. That means your money is stronger before taxes with a working paid job that pays taxes versus the independent contractor that we're blessed with around here. And they're making $100,000 a year, but they cannot buy the homes. Because when they go to qualify, the bottom line is not $100,000. So they're satisfied with this little bit of money. They feel like they're everybody else. But when they go to buy a home, it's not possible. So we need to gear our economy towards W-2 jobs like Sunny Point, like ADM, like Duke Power, and having those people live here. So the only way to fix affordable, the last piece, we do have affordable housing. It's going to be a dilemma. Most of them are not working. They're disabled. They need it to live, but they're not providing services.
That is your time, Mr. Spencer.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen.
Yeah, so affordable housing is definitely an issue in Southport, as we all know. The city has had trouble recruiting and retaining employees because of the cost of housing and the lack of something affordable. One thing that this board has already done was to place restrictions on short-term rentals a couple of 2 or 3 years ago, because it's statistically shown that short-term rentals cause exorbitant increases in housing values in the communities where they appear. I also mentioned conditional zoning as a possible part of the solution. Again, we can, if a developer comes in and proposes a development, we can request that they set aside a certain percentage of the new housing units to be made available at a price that the people that work, that servers, firemen, teachers, police officers, et cetera, can afford. I think it's incumbent on the board to work with the county and with developers to try to identify projects that we could just come in just as a straight as a total workforce housing project. We can do things like waive our system development fees, which is the fees we charge to connect a house to our water and sewer system. It's a fairly substantial amount of money, of course, because it's expensive to provide that water and sewer. We can waive building permit fees, a lot of things like that. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do. None of it's going to happen overnight, but I think that the board can help with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Bray.
Thank you. I was reading an article about the housing crisis the other day in a new magazine, or new to me, called Carolina Forward. It centered a lot about, it talked a lot about a situation that's happening in Durham this election season. And the big thrust of the report was what causes the affordable housing crisis is a lack of affordable housing. It's scarcity. That's the biggest thing. I mean, this is something that's happening nationwide, North Carolina here. One of the remedies is to build more housing, of course, but one of the ways that you do it is the system development fee, ways that you can make it easier to build. You can make, there are lots of remedies. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. This is happening to us the same as it's happening to many other communities. Everything that everybody has said is true. We have to work with the counties. We have to look at making it possible for people to live outside the city and still get in the city. So public transportation is, possibly, that's another piece of this mix. One thing that nobody's mentioned, and I'm finding it out firsthand with my son-in-law and daughter-in-law living on Long Beach Road, they have a lot of friends who have young children. They don't live in Southport. They would like to live in Southport. One of the things that would happen if we had more affordable housing is we would have, our demographics would probably change. It's always great. I like hanging out with them because I used to think there were no kids in Southport. Now I know they're everywhere. I just wasn't looking. I'd like to see more.
Thank you, Ms. Bray. Ms. Davis.
Okay. We've heard a lot about the need. Certainly we need it. We've heard some solutions, such as eliminating or reducing the development fees, the such as the utility connection fees. But if we do that, we're taking away some income that's important revenue for this city, and it will have an impact on taxes. So that's something to consider. How much are the taxpayers of Southport willing to put toward solving this problem here in Southport? I don't think we can do it here. We cannot, in fact, do it alone. We certainly don't have the money to build anything, and frankly, all of the available land here is too expensive. It's too valuable. What we can do, and I firmly believe this, is we can form a coalition with neighboring municipalities. I mean, this isn't our problem alone. They have the same problem. Hiring workforce, they're losing their city employees for the same reason, just like we did. We lost a valuable city employee last week because she has to drive here 45 minutes. She has little kids, but 45 minutes away is the closest she could find a place to live that she could afford. And we pay a decent salary, frankly. So if we work in a coalition with neighboring municipalities, we can then be a force to work with the state and the county. The state's got the money and the programs. There are multiple agencies that work on this, but for example, the State Housing Finance Authority gives a builder 9% tax credit. Oh, I didn't realize I still had time. The county, more later.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. And for our next question, we will start with Mr. Lombardi. Waterfront stabilization is also a major issue facing the Southport Board. What are your thoughts on recent various stabilization proposals and actions? Do you have any thoughts on long-term solutions?
Well, I think we have our solution. We did get $5 million to start this project. There's about 4,000 feet that have to be stabilized at the waterfront. That's what we're talking about. There was a lot of discussion, and I think it got held up because there was a lot of discussion on how much we should do, if we should do all of it. There's some private property involved. Will the money that we received, the $5 million, will the state or the people who gave us the money, can we spend it on private property? Well, it took some time, and we got all our answers, and we have everything pretty well ready to go. And I think that in the next 6 months, I think we will be able to start or get closer. Everything takes so much time, but we have addressed that, and I think that it'll get completed, and we want to do all 4,000 feet.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. Mr. Spencer.
I think it was in December of 2021, we had a picture together where we received $5 million 2 years ago. Nothing has really happened since then. It's probably because of a transition from general managers. Hard to keep a focus when things get keeping turned over. I'll tell you that we had a committee of local people selected, and they went through several plans, different ideas about shoreline revetments, natural shoreline, rocks, all kinds of ideas. But honestly, the thing that seemed like got us tied up was what we were going to do around the Whittler's bench, how we were going to do that section, how these sections were going to affect 4th of July. There were issues. Different opinions. We've got a lot of different opinions. We don't have a consistent opinion in the room. We're a very diverse group of people. We're not from the same place. We didn't go to school together. We don't go to church together. We all have different opinions. So when we come to these points, it's always the loudest, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And it's not always the best place to put the oil. I think we need to be more active of pushing these issues. Protect the shorelines. We've got $5 million. Get started. Do something.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Mr. Allen?
Yeah, so, yeah, we've been working on this for a while. The reason for that is because it's an extremely complex, expensive project. $5 million isn't going to do it. We're hoping to get additional allocation from the state in the future to give us enough to do it. But we've got a good plan. We've got an excellent engineering firm that has been hard at work on it. We're going to have a variety of types of remediation along the waterfront, living shorelines, stone revetment, et cetera. You know, I think we're making good progress on it. We've got a plan, and we're going to follow it and do it, just like we've been doing the other 39 major capital projects and initiatives that we have underway. This board has accomplished an amazing amount in 4 years, and I want to make sure everybody understands that. Now is, in my opinion, now is not the time to be making a change, because this board is working together very well, and we're making things happen for the citizens of this city, and I think they appreciate it, and I think that we deserve the opportunity to continue that progress that we've been making. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Bray?
I'm a little confused. Knowing that any engineering project takes there's a process that needs to be followed. You have to, you know, find the right contractor. It has to be fair and open communication with all the players. And then once the engineer is selected, then, you know, I'm just a little, what I'm confused about is the amount of time it's taken. Because we'll use this capital projects update, monthly update, the list of capital projects that the city is currently working on. I've been watching Southport, to use Mr. Lombardi's phrase, kick the can down the road for a very long time, and I am just astounded at the number of things that are getting done. Many of those projects should have been done years ago. The shoreline stabilization is one of almost 40 projects that, between electrical work, water and sewer work, general fund, parks and rec, police, fire, it is a tremendous effort to balance all of the competing public interests in any government, and I think Southport has more than its share based on its population. It is acting like a city much bigger than its population, doing things that are ensuring that Southport citizens have a good quality of life now and continue to have one into the future, the way that generations past have as we see, you know, we hear testimony about every day. We don't have a magic wand. You got to put one foot in front of the other, and you just got to do the work, and it's getting done.
Thank you, Ms. Bray. Ms. Davis?
Are you ready? Okay, let's do it. Okay, thank you. We haven't been sitting around twiddling our thumbs about any of these projects. It takes forever to get through all of the state and other permitting process. Taylor Field alone took 4 years with the DEQ and everything else. And that's what's happening with shoreline stabilization. And, of course, we were trying very hard and sorting through all possibilities to find the best possible project. But let me talk about something else. Why do we have a problem? Well, there are multiple things: rising sea level, storms, but also the big ships that we like to look at as they go by. The state is in the process of taking public comment and doing a study to dredge this whole channel from 42 feet, as it is now, to 47 feet. Those 5 feet would have a devastating environmental impact and would just chew up our shoreline. And I would hate for us to spend $5 million on stabilization that just got chewed up. So what can you do? You can do a lot, and there's precedent for this. I don't know how many of you know that some years ago, not too long ago, the state had a plan to put the port here instead of Wilmington. A group formed, and it was called No Port Southport, and they stopped it. You can do that too. I will tell you on my website, my Facebook page, and in my ads in the Port Pilot, how to make your voice heard. Where can you write to?
That is your time, Ms. Davis.
Thank you.
Ms. Kelly.
I'm excited that we're moving towards our waterfront stabilization after years and years of watching our waterfront deteriorate. When I was a child, we used to launch our sailboats for the Cape Fear Yacht Club right in front of the Red Roof House, as everyone knows it, right on that beach. That beach is nearly gone, guys. It's a sad state to see what we have along our waterfront right now. I am thrilled that our friends in Raleigh, specifically Representative Charlie Miller, was able to get us $5 million in our budget, and he worked very, very hard to secure that money for us. We have someone fighting for us in Raleigh. It's important to know that we can do as many of these projects as we want. We can put them on the table. We can work towards doing those. But if we're getting money from Raleigh and nobody knows we have it, that's a problem. When our city is reaching out to Raleigh and saying, hey, when are we getting this money? And they go, we gave it to you a year ago. You've had the money. And everybody goes, well, who signed for it? That's a problem. We have hurdles to overcome that are more than just getting the projects moving and on the books. We need to make sure we've identified not only where the money's coming from, but also when we actually have it, so we can move forward on these projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Mr. Lombard, excuse me, not Mr. Lombardi. So we will start with Mr. Spencer for the following question. A number of questions submitted to the League for consideration at this forum center on traffic, road conditions, and parking in Southport. Please give us any thoughts you have on any or all of these issues in the short time that is allowed. Mr. Spencer.
Absolutely not enough time, but you hit me. Perfect question. Traffic is never going to go away. 31,000 homes have been approved to be built in Brunswick County in the next 5 years. We have 160,000 people. They come here every day. When the 4-lane comes, it's going to get worse. So we are a town that prides ourselves on the 4th of July. We handle 50,000 people every day during the 4th of July. I say we've got to build our roads to handle these people. We cannot be dead-end anymore. We can't be a dead-end destination. When they come into town, I want them to look around, I want them to enjoy, I want them to spend their money, but when it's time to leave, take a left on Leonard, go to Wilmington that way. Take a lift on Moore, go that way, Rob Gandy. There are 2 sides to Southport, y'all know, Ward 1, Ward 2. My ward, if you come to my house and you want to talk in my side yard in the road, you can sit there for an hour and visit. I can get out of town anytime. I get mad at my wife when she takes me down House Street. Ward 2 can't do that. They're stuck. We've got to give Ward 2 outlets at Leonard and Moore. When the schools get out, don't go out House Street. Go out Leonard Street. Go reroute our traffic to handle what is coming. I don't want to scare you. We can handle it. But we got to be prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Mr. Allen.
So, yeah, 2 minutes obviously is not nearly enough to talk about this problem. So I'm going to talk fast, and if you want to talk about it some more after this meeting, please let me know. Since 2010, that's 13 years, the city of Southport has gained approximately 1,000 new residents. BSL, St. James, Oak Island, and the unincorporated part of the county between here and those three municipalities has gained 10,000. And as Mr. Spencer just noted, there's a whole lot more coming. I do not believe that we can continue to just allow unfettered access to our city and our downtown for the whole world. I think we've got to start doing some things to enable our citizens to take our town back and be able to enjoy their own city. Towards that end, I had money in my request. The Board of Aldermen put money in this year's budget to hire a professional firm to do a parking management plan for Southport, and that hopefully will enable us to rationalize our parking and transportation plans. We'll be working, obviously, in conjunction with the citizens on that, and I'm looking forward to what that's going to bring to us over the next few years. But I think we've got to realize that the problem does not lie within Southport. It lies outside Southport. We're going to have to take some steps to take our city back and allow our citizens to enjoy our city and visit our businesses and enjoy our attractions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Bray.
I don't have much to add to what John just said. I think he's exactly right. We are facing just an onslaught of growth that we cannot change at its source, but we absolutely have to figure out how we're going to navigate these challenges that it will bring. The parking study is great. I'm really glad it's underway. One of the things that I've gotten a little bit of education on since I told someone, I was a friend, said I was going to run for office. She said, be sure and take, understand and increase the handicap accessible parking situation and opportunities for people who are not as able to get around town as some of the rest of us. There's so many issues that have to do with this growth, parking and traffic rerouting, all kinds of things. And I'm really glad that this election is happening, because I don't remember the growth around us being as big a concern in years past. And we're probably a little bit behind the 8 ball, but it sounds like the city is in a good position to be serious about, a very strong effort, as long as it takes, and involving as many voices, as many ideas as people have their experience this is, again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Other municipalities have gotten through this and are going through it, and it just sucks, but here we are, so.
Thank you, Ms. Bray. Ms. Davis.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to concentrate on parking. First of all, we can do something a little bit about all the cars and all the traffic here in town by reducing the density of future developments. Less density, fewer cars. But that's really a drop in the bucket ultimately. The rest of it is up to the state. You know that the major roads in Southport are all state roads. We have a little bit of influence with them, but not much. So we look at what's coming at us right now, this widening. Gosh, that's awful. What's next? But I also want to talk about parking. Yes, I voted for the parking study and to spend money for that, and I'm looking forward to it. But this morning Oddly enough, just as I was drinking my first cup of coffee, I got a call from a citizen who wanted background on this plan to tear up the tennis courts out here and put in a parking lot. Well, that's a way to ruin the morning. You know, no, we're not doing that. If we ever even think about it, that's a no to me. And we did think about it. Back in I think it's about 8 years ago, the aldermen did study this, and then they killed it. It's a dead issue. And where I'm concerned, it'll stay a dead issue. But what have we done so far? Well, first of all, down at the yacht basin, that big open space, that's all residential. But what we have done is make it a parking overlay. And zoning terms, that means it's still residential, but it can be used as parking spaces. Oh dear, I'm out of time. More later.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Ms. Kelly.
So Lo touched a little bit on density. I live back in Indigo Plantation. So when I'm trying to get home around 3:15, 3:30 in the afternoon, I know I better go to Walmart first. It makes a whole lot more sense for me to go sit down at the waterfront for 20 minutes before I try and get home, because otherwise I'm just sitting on 9th Street waiting to get home. As we're looking at future development, the 450 acres that sits in Southport city limits as well as in our ETJ, changing our zoning and allowing higher density in that area is going to increase our traffic exponentially. When we're looking at opportunities for what's going on with parking in Southport, there's an opportunity for a private person to start a shuttle service in Southport, guys. This is, again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Every tourist city that you go to has some sort of shuttle service that goes through the downtown corridor. If you remember, I believe it was Downtown Southport Inc. that did have a shuttle service for a little while through our downtown areas, but I feel like they were ahead of the game at the time. I feel like we weren't quite at the level where we are right now. So I think that was a great idea. We started with a great idea. We just weren't ready for it yet. I feel like Southport's at the point where we really can work with private people who are interested in doing a shuttle service. Maybe we can encourage different areas where it makes sense to have stops throughout our city, where we can work with our fire and police to make sure it's in an area that won't hinder the rest of the traffic through town. But we've got lots of opportunities to work with people and to reach out to our citizens for solutions.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Mr. Lombardi.
Yes, I 100% agree with John and the parking and everything else. However, I think our traffic, and we're living in River Mist, I know that what it takes me now to get to the waterfront used to take me 5 minutes, now it takes me 15 and sometimes longer. I think the traffic is incoming traffic, not so much that's from Southport. It's everybody coming into Southport. And it is a problem, and I think density in Southport, building a few houses is not going to make much difference. I think that it's the outside traffic, and I think a study, as John indicated, and some places to park, and we don't even know what the solution is. But we have, let me just say one thing. In our budget, we created a 2-man, 3-man crew to do some patching in the roads. I know everybody's concerned that the roads are not in great shape. It's a start. It will eventually become a paving crew where we can do our own paving and save a lot of money. But the patching, we're trying to keep the roads in good condition until we try to solve all this traffic. And it's not an easy task, but we have discussed it and we're trying our best.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. And we're back to starting with Mr. Allen. Recently, the Board of Aldermen held a forum on homelessness in Southport. Did you attend this forum or follow the discussion? What are your thoughts on this issue and how the Board of Aldermen might address it? Mr. Allen.
Yes, I did attend it. It was very informative. Again, this is an issue that is somewhat similar, I think, to affordable housing in that it's not a problem that we are going to be able to solve entirely on our own. We're going to have to work in conjunction with local nonprofits and with the county to come up with a solution. It is inextricably, in part of the homeless problem is inextricably linked to the affordable housing issue. So again, it's not something that we're going to be able to tackle ourselves, but we're going to work with our partners and come up with a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Bray.
Yes, I did not attend the meeting, but I have been aware. I was at the, I believe it was the July or the August Alderman meeting, where several people who had experienced had encounters with some of the homeless people. I think there were more than a handful, 6 or 7 homeless people, and more than that number of citizens who had experienced firsthand encounters with the folks. It is, obviously it was a shock because it hasn't been an issue. I understand that there can be external sources, situations that change the situation in Southport. We're so close to Wilmington, that kind of thing. And I think they had recently had a change in the regulations about how to, what the homeless were allowed to do, and they decided to, or some of them decided to come here. And then I had a conversation with Chief Coring just recently, and apparently the homeless population is not what it was. There may be 1 or 2 people, he said, that are still hanging around, but it seemed to be that to him, and I won't speak for Chief Coring, but it did seem as though if Wilmington wasn't hospitable, Southport became hospitable, so that it was a very localized issue. It happened at the same time as the Brunswick County Transitional Housing new home building, new residence building opened up. So it was great to see, I read the news reports about the meeting, and it was great to see the level of support from county agencies and nonprofit organizations that are cued into the types of things that homeless people need.
Thank you, Ms. Bray. Ms. Davis.
Thank you. Okay, here's the truth. There's no place for the homeless. Literally, no place for them to go. There's no homeless shelter here in this county. Myrtle Beach has a number of them, but they're not taking anybody from out of the state. So that's obviously not North Carolina. All of the homeless shelters in Wilmington are full. They're not taking anybody. So where do the homeless go? If they have a car and they're here, I don't know if any of you know that Walmart does let homeless people come at night and sleep in their cars there, and there are some amenities that are available. But what an awful, awful situation. What a terrible way to live. The answer is, again, a coalition with our fellow municipalities. We don't have this problem exclusively here in Southport. If we can work together with the other municipalities and persuade the county to use some of its money to build and operate homeless shelters, this would be the perfect answer. And we might think, well, maybe they don't have enough money. Oh, heck, that is not true. They have just voted to buy 539 acres as investment property for to bring in businesses and jobs. And I wonder where all those people who fill those jobs are going to be living. They're not telling us that. The county's got the money. Let's make them help us solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Ms. Kelly?
So, Walmart recently posted signs that there's no longer parking allowed overnight at Walmart. So that's a development that has happened just in the last couple of months. But that is not just a Southport issue, that is nationwide, because some things were happening in their parking lots that they became liable for. So I cannot blame them for taking those steps. I have a unique perspective for this homelessness problem. So my business is the Inn at Southport, for those that don't know. It's 512 North House Street. We overwhelmingly do not rent to locals. I don't rent to locals because I don't want someone moving in to the hotel and making it their new home, because it changes how the rest of the guests feel. Now, if you're getting your kitchen remodeled and need a place for a couple of days, that's a totally different animal. This is not a place where you come because you don't know where you're going to go next. I had a mother call and say, oh, my son and his girlfriend, I'm sending them away for the weekend. They're going to come stay with you. She paid for their room. They were there 2 nights. My room was destroyed. The lamps were broken. The bed was broken. Things were torn off the wall. I had to ask the guest to leave multiple times and had to ask him to stay away from other guests while he was there. His mother called and said, oh, I'd like to extend the stay. Absolutely not. He is not welcome here. I see him going up and down House Street constantly now. We have a mental health issue. The homeless people that we have here in town, we do not have the resources to be able to help with the mental health issues that are going on. Let's work with Wilmington, let's work with Raleigh, let's work with Charlotte, and let's help them find a different place to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Mr. Lombardi?
Yes, I don't have a solution, unfortunately. I do agree that we have to work with the county, with the state, with whoever, with other municipalities. However, I do know that we got to help these people. We can't just let them sleeping in their cars and sleeping at the waterfront and sleeping in the woods. We've got to do something to help these people, and we got to work on it. And I don't have a solution, but I know that who we have to work with and hope for the best, because you just can't have these people doing what they're doing. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. Mr. Spencer?
There, by the grace of God, go I. I'm not good at quoting scripture, but I'm thankful because I've been close. My life has not always been perfect. I've had struggles. I've had power turned off before. It's not fun. They do it to me sometimes around here on the water when I don't pay. So I know what it's like. I've seen people struggle. We've got to put a process in place. We have no facility in Brunswick County, not in our county. We don't need that kind of thing. But there needs to be a place to send these people, to give them an opportunity. There are things I've witnessed as I was out in the world, out in the real world, they might say. Organizations like in Durham called TROSA that gave people a place to live, gave them something to do, gave them the mental health that they needed in exchange for a commitment to be somewhere for a year, and they provided services for the community. So we're going to have to do the public-private thing if we're going to really try to help people. We're going to have to ask that our county, who does have the money, to come into the city over at Fiddler Creek. I can't remember the names. Pickerel Drive, we have a housing place in that area, multiple areas, something Greens, I can't name them. We need to reinvest in those areas. Those are they're not functionally usable. We need to reinvest in our local area. If you'll go back in there, these are 50, 60-year-old units. So we're going to have to rebuild and maybe increase our units. Again, I said something that was really scary. Most of the people in there don't work. They're just there because they don't have anywhere else to go, so they're not labor.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. And we are in the home stretch. This is our second to last question, and we will begin with Ms. Bray for this question. Finally, before our concluding question, please think about what transparency, openness, and inclusion means to you in your work as an alderman. Please describe what being a transparent, open, and inclusive member of the Board of Aldermen means to you.
Quick question. Is this our last question? So
This is our second to last question.
Okay. Do you mind telling me what the last question is?
Not yet.
Okay. If the last question is, why are you the best possible candidate for this alderman position? It would be about trust and transparency, inclusion, community engagement. So I'll say that. But what it means to me is very close to the chest for me, close to the heart for me, because I have worked in Southport, in a number of Southport volunteer committees, on a number of Southport volunteer committees. I love civic engagement of many kinds. I'm a government nerd, so I subscribe to open government, collaborative, working teamworks. I don't know if you've seen any of my ads in the Southport pilot. I am one of the absolute tenets of my platform is open exchange of ideas, community consensus building, collaboration. All of those things are what inclusion means to me. We all have a stake in Southport's future. We all have a stake in our present. We don't all have a stake in the past, but we benefit from the wonderful ways that Southport has worked together for generations. Probably one of the main reasons why it's so special. It's got a lot of good karma because people invested a lot of their individual volunteer time, their working time, their energy and their opinions. And we are inheriting a place that is tailor-made for continuing that, broadening it, expanding it. We need to have all kinds of voices at the table. That's inclusion to me.
Thank you, Ms. Bray. Ms. Davis.
Ready? Okay, here's the truth. Transparency does not come naturally to elected officials. Quite the opposite, in fact. I mean, for many elected officials, not necessarily here, the idea of people knowing what we're doing just doesn't seem to sit right. Well, it's your business. We work for you. You're our boss. We're spending your money. Of course you should know about this. Transparency is dear to my heart, and as I told you way back, 8 or 9 hours ago, it seems, one of the reasons I ran 4 years ago was the lack of transparency. In my 50 years as a journalist, I have won, I told you, numerous national journalism awards for such things as fighting for transparency in government. I was part of a lawsuit that went all the way to the Court of Appeals, an effort to get public document. They were public documents, damn it, about legislative spending. We won, and that became a landmark case. In fact, I also was a founder of a Freedom of Information coalition. The Freedom of Information Act, FOIA as it's known, came out of the First Amendment. I see I'm almost out of time. I will say this Board of Aldermen is very transparent, makes an effort our city manager is all over us.
That is your time, Ms. Davis.
Okay.
Ms. Kelly.
I'm an open book. You can call me anytime. I pretty much answer the phone 24/7, and the fact that it's off and in my bag right now is driving me nuts, because I know there's someone who has called or texted me while I have been up here, and I have not been able to respond to them. If I don't respond immediately, it usually means I mentally responded to you and forgot to hit send. So you gotta text me again sometimes. I believe transparency is being able to have an open conversation, whether it's a popular opinion or not. There are certainly situations where I'm going to put myself in a position where I am not going to be in the majority position. But that's not what's important sitting up here. What's important is what you guys want. Just because it's my opinion doesn't mean that's the way I should vote. Because if you guys, as the voters, as the people who are paying the tax dollars, don't believe that what me personally as Rebecca Kelly thinks is not the same, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you guys think. Now, as I said, I'm an open book, because then I don't have to remember what I told you already, because that just makes my life easier. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what you guys want, not what I as Rebecca Kelly want. Now, there are times when we will have disagreement, certainly sitting up at the table with the other aldermen, and certainly between the constituents. Those are agreements that can be, we can agree to disagree sometimes, but at the end of the day, we're working together for a common goal, and we need to make sure that that's something that we're okay with. That if we disagree, that's open and in the public, and there's no question about where I stood. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's not what I personally want, it's what you guys want. This is what we're here for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Mr. Lombardi.
Yes, it's been my honor to be an alderman because of our transparency. I wouldn't be doing this if it was any other way. I have to thank our mayor for insisting on it. And I forgot what I was going to say. I feel like McConnell now. No. No, I don't always agree or disagree with people. If people have a different opinion, I certainly listen and respect what they have to say. I don't always agree, and sometimes I have to disagree. I also, if anybody calls me or texts me, I totally call them back, and that's just me. And I think that's part of transparency. And I think this board is one of the most transparent that I've ever seen in Southport. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lombardi. Mr. Spencer.
I will not characterize this board's transparency out of respect. I will be available if anyone calls me. If they want to know what's happening and I know it, I'll share it. It is a difficult question. If you're ashamed of something and you're hiding it, it's wrong. You should not hide anything that you feel is wrong. So therefore, tell the truth, and then you'll be fine. That's my opinion of transparency. Tell the damn truth.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Now on to Mr. Allen.
Yeah, so as Mayor Hayden pointed out, transparent, open, inclusive, that's exactly what this board has been for the past 4 years. The examples of that are numerous. We've got Southport Connect, the monthly newsletter that he mentioned. we're putting tons more information on the website. You can go on there, and when Indigo Phase 2, all the documents for that are on there. Plans, I mean, everything. Anything that we're doing, you can go and look it up. It's on the website. We started streaming our meetings, of course. We're making them available on the website for viewing at a later date. We've increased public comment, as the mayor pointed out. Indigo Phase 2 was a good example, and we had an unprecedented amount of public involvement in that process. I mean, we had public comment meetings, all the, when the planning board was working on it, all those meetings are open to the public, all our meetings are open to the public. I think this board has been extremely transparent and open and inclusive, and I know that we will continue to be in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. And now on to the highly anticipated moment of this evening, the final question. Thank you, and congratulations to everyone who has stuck with us this far. You are Gold Star citizens here in Southport. So similarly, this is starting with Ms. Davis. You'll be the first one to answer this question. Similarly, as with the mayor candidates, please use your final 2 minutes to tell us something about life on the campaign trail. What stands out most in your mind that you have learned about what being on the Board of Aldermen means to Southport residents? Also, is there one thought that you would especially like to leave with Southport voters about your campaign?
Fear and loathing on the campaign trail. Some of you recognize that, I know. Campaigning is hard because it takes a lot of time and it requires a lot of listening and doing your research. People ask questions, darn it, and we need to have answers. And if we don't have answers, we get back to you. The thing that I have learned in the many meet and greets that I've done so far, and also talking to people send in questions. There are unique problems in different neighborhoods, but there is a common thread of things that people are worried about. Overdevelopment. What are we going to do about traffic? What are we going to do about workforce housing? One thing we don't hear about anymore, fortunately, is transparency. And let me repeat that this board has made just quantum leaps. I don't have any problem with our transparency. I truly don't. I think we've made a good effort on this. And I was starting to say, when I was running out of time, our city manager is all over us about not we can't even hit send all when she is talking to all of us online and then email about some issue, because that's a violation of public meetings. If all of us are talking about something and there's a quorum, nope, we can't even do that online. She watches us like a hawk, and we are willing to go along with that because this matters. It matters that you know.
That is your time, Ms. Davis. Ms. Kelly.
I love the campaign trail. I love getting out and talking to people. I love learning what's important to our citizens, because Lo's right. Each neighborhood has its own unique issues that are going on, but there are common themes that run throughout. As we're talking about growth and development here in Southport, I did want to mention that we were talking about conditional zoning earlier, and everyone's talking about how wonderful it is because it has so much public input. Well, I sat through multiple meetings about Indigo Phase 2 where multiple people gave their public input, and it still didn't seem to make a difference or move the needle for what was going on. So I have a hard time believing that requiring public input is going to be any different than the public input that we had so far. One of the things that I really feel strongly about is we have really, really smart people who live in Southport, whether they've retired and moved here or they're still working. they were at the top of their field or still at their top of their field in order to be able to live here in Southport. Let's lean on those folks. When we have an issue come up and we don't know enough about it, let's reach out to our citizenry and say, hey guys, has anybody sold parking to municipalities before? Because guess what? We have a citizen in Southport who sells parking to municipalities and would be more than happy to come talk to us and educate us on what's available. And one of the things I think is very interesting is he said, and he sells parking, that Southport is not a good fit for paid parking. So there are definitely people that we can reach out to. We need to lean on our citizens, and we need to come together to find solutions for what we have going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Mr. Lombardi.
Yeah, thank you for all coming. And Rebecca, I think that Indigo is a dead issue because of what everybody had to say. And I think they made a big difference. And anyway, I haven't really started my campaigning. I had a knee replacement in the beginning of August, so I'm just getting to start to walk again, but I will be on the trail shortly. My years of volunteering in Southport has really helped me understand what this city needs. And it has really guided me in a lot of decisions that I had to make. Before I mentioned my background was construction, and I'm really looking forward to continuing giving advice of my expertise in construction so we can get all this work that we have to with our infrastructure and our paving and our building. I think I could be a big help. So I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. Mr. Spencer.
So I'm a weirdo. I talk about this stuff all the time. My golfing buddies, they listen to it, everybody. This is what Mark talks about. This is my life. Could you say it's my calling? I think so. I'm the only one left. There are only a few people here that know what it's like to grow up in Southport, raise children in Southport, and take care of a mother in Southport. God bless me. I'm loaded. I know what it's like. I have the historical background. And if you don't know where we've come from and you really don't know where we're at, how in the heck would you know where we're going? So I think I have something positive to give. I'm an independent voice. I'm not writing anybody's ticket. I'm not supporting any mayor. I'm supporting Southport. And I will do that. I will share my connections as I was an alderman. I built a good alliance of connections both in the county and the state. I want to put Southport back out in the state in these committees with the League of Municipalities. Make them answer to us. We don't have a presence. If people are showing up, they don't recognize it. None of my friends in Raleigh have seen anybody show up. So we need to participate more, both in our regional planning, with our county administrators, and with the League of Municipalities. We've got to get involved. We're not under the dome anymore.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spencer. Mr. Allen.
Since I'm last, I get it 2 hours instead of 2 minutes, right? No. Real quick, I just want to say that to say that Indigo Phase 2 is an example of this board not listening is kind of nonsensical, because this board was unanimous in its opposition to Indigo Phase 2. So clearly, we actually did hear what the citizens were saying. In campaigning this year, one theme that I've heard is the need to keep special interest money out of our elections. 2 years ago, Ms. Kelly and Mr. Spencer accepted help from a real estate PAC in the form of glossy 4-color mailings that went out to try to reach into Southport and influence our election. Our citizens do not wish for that to occur, and I hope that they will pledge not to do that in this election cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Bray.
I get to be last. I'm going to change the subject a little bit. Thank you all again for coming tonight. It's been a long night. Really appreciate you being here, and I hope you'll vote for at least 3 of us and 4 of us on November 7th. I am not a native to Southport, but I've been living here for 13 years, and I am a very proud local. At least I've earned my local status. I feel like a local. Maybe that's the only thing that's important, because I will do everything in my power to support the energy and the opinions of every citizen in Southport. It is our town, and we are in this together. I support the current administration. As far as the campaign trail goes, this was really interesting. I started talking to people that I see on a regular basis about things that matter to them about the city, and I never heard so many opinions, and we never have these conversations. So I'm very happy about having a very positive experience on the campaign trail. I support the current administration efforts to repair the infrastructure, and I pledge to seek every opportunity to secure the stability of our future. I pledge transparency and trust, open communication, consensus building, sustainable growth, and promotion of Southport's spirit. I am in this for the right reasons, and for that reason, I hope you'll vote for me on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is all that we have. Thank you so much to each of the candidates, mayoral and for the Board of Aldermen, for being here. Thank you to the League. And thank you to each of y'all for being here and taking an interest in your local government. Have a good night.